Hi, everyone. So we have 2 weeks left of the semester and a couple more days after that. But we are here at the end of the semester and the last chapter of the semester. And this last chapter is called Thinking Critically About the Media. So, the media. And it is apt that we end the semester with this chapter because the world that we live in is always necessarily mediated. That is, we can't live in other people's heads to know what they think, so therefore we have to rely on them to tell us what they're thinking in their own words and how they decide to tell us. And we can't be in all the places at the same time, all of the country or all of the world, to gain firsthand knowledge of what is happening. What we encounter in our everyday lives comes to us in a form that has been edited by others. In other words, much of what we know about the world is second hand. We can think of this as allowing us to widen the base of our knowledge because our limited ability to be places, right? We can really only be in one place at one time. But it also comes with the risk of being dependent on others for filtering or mediating that information. So that puts us in a precarious situation. What are we supposed to do? Do we just believe what is handed to us? Or do we always distrust and look with suspicion at or downright reject from the get go what is placed in front of us? It seems like we are destined to be in this impossible either or situation, and this is very often the world that we are thrust in when dealing with the media. But the truth is always in the middle. So it behooves us to look for the truth by cutting through the biases, fallacies, and manipulated language to get to the truth. In other words, we have to do a lot of critical thinking, and critical thinking is actually pretty hard. It's a lot easier just to accept or reject right away. But critical thinking, critical engagement with any kind of information means that you have to do the work. So it is hard. But we have been learning how to do it all semester. So we now know how to answer questions like these. What is an argument? How is an argument supported? Is the evidence solid when you do have a piece of evidence? Are there appeals to emotions through the manipulation of language and vocabulary? Is the reasoning presented valid, sound, cogent, strong, or are there fallacies that twist the truth? So we have learned to answer these questions to first question and to answer. And nowadays, we have this thing called the internet, and the birth of the internet was heralded with much anticipation of the democratization of knowledge because we were so dependent on written and on visual account of what others bring you, and you were limited to forming your opinion on what you were given. But with the internet, it seemed to be that there was finally the potential for knowledge and information to be loosened from the grip of a few. And these were intermediaries. Mainstream media was to be no longer the controlling purveyor of information. However, this also came at a great cost. Misinformation, which is false and non vetted information, proliferated, and disinformation, which is manipulated narrative and facts intended, and this is important, intended to mislead the public, grew exponentially at a speed not seen up until then. We see this in social media all the time. Fake news spreads like wildfire. When it is repeated enough, it replaces reality. So it is up to the individuals to critically engage with information and to decide what is true and what is not. We have to always remember, as consumers of information, to take the 4 steps outlined in the chapter. Compare sources to determine what is factual. Consider how context has been excluded in a particular story. Examine the arrangement of information and evaluate the use of language. In other words, we need to follow the soundness and validity of arguments and how these arguments are presented with what premises, and to pay attention to sequential strength of evidence and the misleading power of language. All of this boils down to what is known as media literacy, and it is a buzzword of sorts, but it is also a very important concept that we need to understand. When we know how to follow these 4 steps, we are able to spot deliberate lies and outrageously distorted news created for political and financial gain. Media literacy helps us avoid silos, in other words, the gathering of like-minded people and only like-minded people, echo chambers where you only say and hear what you want to hear and say, and confirmation bias, which is you have this thought in your head, you only go to places where you find the very same thing you're thinking, and you feel as if your opinions have been validated, and you mistakenly think that your opinions are facts. And then we are also very often attracted to either or thinking and bandwagon thinking, and media literacy helps us avoid those two. And we also are able or better able to filter out improper appeals to authority when we have media literacy. So all of the chapters so far can be seen to be in service of where we are right now, which is we want to become better consumers and better spreader of information. And not just any information, but information that has been thoroughly vetted by you. And that you now look at pieces of information critically. And also that you analyze and evaluate what you see, hear, and read. And be a responsible citizen. Only you have the power to break the chain of falsehoods. Call out, point out. And you will find that as somebody who is able to think critically, you no longer can just sit back and say nothing. You have to say something when you see obvious falsehoods. Okay? So be good, live long and prosper. Take care.